NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. Politti here. Busy week for Rutgers sports. Nothing else in the country, luckily. Got the basketball season opener on Wednesday. Rutgers football, Minnesota on the weekend. We're going to do a basketball preview today, come back later in the week, and then preview the Minnesota game. But I want to dedicate an entire show to hoops, fellas, because let's face it, it ain't get much bigger than this. 26 years of covering Rutgers sports, I cannot remember a moment in time where there is more excitement, more interest in a team. It just strikes me that we've built toward this thing for a while, that it is finally here. It's exciting, man. I just can't look at it in any other way than I'm really excited to see what happens with this team.
To make a joke about Election Day, Steve Pikiell's approval rating must be at 97+% at this point. I think no one in the state of New Jersey could think he could do wrong. If he ran for Middlesex County town's mayorship, he would win it in a landslide. I think people are very excited about Steve Pikiell, what he's built, this team he's built. I think since the moment Dylan Harper made it official at the start of December, it's been 10 months, 11 months, and every day has been kind of a tick, tick, tick to this moment. To your point, Politti, I have absolutely no idea what to expect from this team. I don't think anybody else has any idea what to expect from this team. And that's kind of the most exciting part, because come Wednesday, I'm pretty sure they're going to blow the doors off Wagner and all the other bye teams. Once it gets to Alabama and the Big Ten, Lord knows what's going to happen. And I think that's part of what makes this so exciting.
I expect to be entertained, Pat. That's one thing I do expect.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw that in the scrimmage, and I was just to stick with the election theme. Pikiell's got the agenda, right? Like what's his vision for the season? How can he change things here? What will be different? Obviously is the vote of confidence, but what is his game plan? So I think that'll be thrilling to see. Obviously, with the offensive potential of this team, will he change up that identity of a defensive approach? It just seems so obvious that will be the case. So yeah, at the very least, those days of, like you've been saying, Politti, 56 to 50 are kind of over with, because these guys can score, and that's extremely exciting.
All right, let's start here, because the entire focus we've learned already is going to be on Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I'm wondering what is realistic to expect from these two. Is it enough? Is it enough to say that they're all Big Ten first team caliber players? Are they player of the year candidates, or are we putting so much on them where maybe we got to dial that back to just let them be good college basketball players? I don't know what is the realistic. I know what we hope it's going to be. I know what they hope it's going to be, what the ceiling could be. I just don't know what realistically it's going to be.
I think they have the potential to be two of the top 5 best players in the Big Ten, certainly top 10. The talent is there. The potential is there. It's a matter of how much they can unlock this season, how much Steve Pikiell and the staff can get them to do. Listen, we've seen talented freshmen take over the Big Ten. D'Angelo Russell at Ohio State 10 years ago. I know it's going a ways back, but we've seen guys come in and be one of the best players in the Big Ten. I certainly think Dylan Harper, with his steadiness, can or has a better chance of being, a first team all Big Ten guy, just because I think more often than not, he will show up. I am curious about Ace Bailey. I think there is a world where Ace Bailey has an insane year, goes crazy, averages something like 16, 17, 20 points a game at its ceiling. And if you do that, you're going to be the Big Ten player of the year. I also see a world where he struggles in adjusting to the Big Ten, the physicality. Teams are going to put 2, 3, 4 guys on him, trying their best to make him not score and make everyone else score for him. So I really don't know. I think the variance in Ace Bailey's season is much higher than Dylan Harper. I think no matter what they do to Dylan Harper, he's always going to be able to get to the rim, going to be able to hit some shots and create for his teammates. So I think that kind of answers the question of what we should expect from Rutgers, right? If we get a top 10% Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey outcome out of the season, I think the Final Four is certainly not out of reach here, because those two single-handedly can carry this team to heights Rutgers has never reached. But you never have a guarantee of how good these kids are going to be. They're 18-year-old freshmen, and things happen with 18-year-old freshmen that sometimes they don't live up to their potential. Who knows?
Yeah. Pat, does
I
that
don't
make
know.
Dylan Harper the more important player, you think?
I think whenever the ball is in your hand, whether it's the quarterback, whatever position, when the ball is in your hands, you ultimately become the most important player. So he's going to have the ball in his hands, creating offense for this team, right? Like that's his role. So I think from that perspective alone, he's kind of the floor general. I know he's not, the point guard per se, but I just see the offense running through him. And that to me makes him a little bit more important, just from a steadiness perspective. And that's why I do think there has to be some sort of adjustment on these kids are freshmen, but I think the way that the schedule sets up with all the bye games leading up before the Vegas tournament, that there's a great opportunity for them to really figure this out, figure out their identity. It's really the perfect situation and scenario to get them going and adjust things that need to be adjusted and figure things out. I'd like to listen to Pikel and Shiano and all the coaches about what are they seeing? How do you kind of take away what they're seeing? And from every single second that Pikel talks, I hear him saying, like, guys, we have to remember these kids are 18. And that's something that is always in the back of my mind for sure.
The funny thing is he might say that, but on the list of things of which I am certain is they're going to play 36 minutes a game. He is going to ride them. If Ace Bailey is 2 for 11, he's taking the 12th shot. Like I just don't see a world where he's going to bench them and let's give them some time. Let's put them in and not take them out of the starting lineup. They are going to play. I'm certain. And which to me, what's interesting about this, if you pencil them for 36 minutes, all right, what is the supporting cast around them? We've talked about it a lot and trying to pinpoint, to me, the next important player on this team. I have a hard time doing it. Brian, if you had to pick one guy to be that next important player on the team, who is it?
It's a really, really hard question, right? Because I don't know if there is a bona fide third best player on this team, let alone most important. I honestly don't know. I'm going to go with the easy answer, the cop-out answer, whoever is the center. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be Emmanuel Ogbole. I don't know if it's going to be Lathan Somerville. I don't know if it's going to be Zack Martini in a small ball lineup. I think it's going to be all three to a certain extent. I don't know what the distribution is, but no matter who is in there, they desperately need a guy who could be kind of a pressure release valve in the middle of the paint, just toss him the ball, and maybe he doesn't have to score every time, but he has to do something, be able to kind of help them scrunch the floor up and open up the outside. And they need a guy who could defend centers in the Big Ten. There are a lot of really good centers in the Big Ten. And I don't think Emmanuel Ogbole or Lathan Somerville could be Cliff Omori and have the impact defensively that he had. We're talking about one of the best defensive centers in the country. And Alabama paid a lot of money for those defensive services. These are big shoes to fill. I don't expect them to fill it. But when they're going against Michigan's 2 elite centers, when they're going against Indiana's man of a center, when they're going against these really, really good elite guys, they have to limit them to some extent. Because as good as Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey could be, you saw what happened even with St. John's Center, the way that he just dominated them inside. And you can't win games, or you won't win games very often when that dominance is happening to that extent. So I think whoever's at center, they need somebody to step up and play to a reasonable level. I don't even think they have to be good. They just have to not be bad.
I think Brian hit on a lot of things. I'm just going to throw out a wild card answer to the original question about who would be the next important person. And I think he's kind of been put on the back burner because he was hurt and didn't play in the scrimmage. But Tyson Acuff came in scoring a ton of points and being a really important scorer. On those days where Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper maybe aren't finding the basket, you need that third scorer. So I'm going to say from that perspective, for this offensive team, for once, maybe the third scorer is going to be the next most important player.
Interesting. That is a good theory. If I had to pick one, I was going to say Zack Martini. I think that's an obvious one just for me from a couple standpoints. You're going to need someone with a little bit of leadership. He seems like, to me, a natural guy for that role. You're going to need someone who's going to be able to get a big rebound in a situation. And I also think someone who's going to be able to hit a big shot. So for me, he checks 3 boxes that I'm looking for. I think the last shot's going to be Dylan or Ace, but still you want a guy who can do all those things, experience, a winner, coming from a program where he's won. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's a Big Ten center. Again, he's going to give up some inches, going to give up some athleticism. I know he's tough. He's big. He's wide. I think they're going to end up counting on him a lot for a lot of different things. So for me, I put him as the next most important player. But, we haven't even talked about this. The problem last year was Rutgers couldn't shoot. Like, are we confident that they have enough people on the perimeter that they're going to hit shots?
I'm confident Rutgers has two guys who could hit 3-pointers. Yeah. PJ Hayes and Zack Martini are snipers. They shot over 38% from 3 last year. PJ Hayes is shooting something like 40% for his career on high volume, obviously in D2 and low major Division 1, but shooting is shooting. The distance to the basket's the same. You'd like to think the rim is the same. The guy can hit big shots, very Cam Spencer-esque, and I think that if he lives up to that reputation, Rutgers will have at least one, and with Zack Martini, 2 guys you could depend on to hit a 3. My concern is everybody else. There's no one that's like a middling 3-point shooter, 34% guy. We have 2 guys that are 38+%. We have 5 freshmen who we have no idea. I'm not counting on Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper being 35% 3-point shooters because I just don't think that they can do that. And everyone else is a 27, 28, 29% 3-point shooter. I mean, there's not a lot. I mean, Tyson Akoff is a microwave scorer, right? But he's shooting 29% on threes. Jermichael Davis might have improved his threes a little bit. He still shot 27% or 28% last year. Jeremiah Williams, great offensive spark plug last year. The one thing he didn't do was shoot well from the outside. That to me is a major question, and it's going to be a matter of how many shots can they make PJ Hayes and Martini take, and how little shots can everyone else take from beyond the arc. That's the 2 determining factors there.
I will say the one thing that's there will be more open shots for these guys.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're going to say
that. That's exactly what I was going to say. I know I'm like the X's and O's football guy. I don't have the X's and O's for basketball per se, but I figured in this situation it's pretty clear that there should be some open guys considering where the ball is going to be. It just makes sense.
All right. So this is the first time Rutgers has started the season ranked since. Do we have that answer?
I did. I think it's 79.
79. Okay.
No, they were also ranked in the year after they reached the tournament for the first time.
To start a season?
To start a season.
21, 22 maybe. Let me look it up. This is
okay. Great. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. That wasn't the question. The point I was going to make, though, entering the season with all the expectations, all the attention, what have you seen from that element of it? Has Rutgers done a good job managing this stuff, Brian, you think? I mean, I haven't been around the team as much as you have. It seems like, like the SI spread came and went, and it didn't seem like it was a big deal. The media attention, the media day was big. NBA scouts are going to be in the building. I haven't gotten the sense yet that it has been this massive, holy bleep distraction that a lot of people thought it would be. Maybe that's coming. We'll see that on Wednesday. What do you think about the intangibles external part of this?
So Pat was correct. 2020-21, they were ranked 24 in the preseason, which was the year they broke through and went to the tournament. That was right after the 2019-20 season was cut short by COVID. Anyway, I think all of that has been fine and dandy so far. It's the preseason. Everyone's 0-0. They haven't lost a single game yet. Everyone is kind of singing Kumbaya because nothing has happened. I am curious about how the national attention will impact this team when they do go on a 3-game, 4-game losing streak, when Dylan and Ace, who have never been criticized really their entire careers, do get some criticism if they have a bad game or if they have a bad stretch, like if they miss a big shot. I'm curious to see how it seems like the one concern I had in the preseason was Dylan and Ace are getting all the attention. You mentioned SI, you mentioned Slam, you mentioned all the media attention at Media Day where there were 30 people trying to talk to those two and everyone else kind of got 2 or 3 guys around them. I have not seen any disruption from those guys. I think everyone kind of understands their role, understands that Dylan and Ace are kind of the cash cows here. They are the alphas, the number 1 guys. They're going to be the team leaders. Everyone else is going to have to play their role in the supporting cast. And so far, everyone seems to be bought in. Again, what happens when we're in mid-December and a guy who thought maybe he was getting 4 shots a game gets 1 shot a game? A guy who thought he was playing 10 minutes a game is playing 4. You can't predict those things. And I'm curious to see how, Steve Pikiell and his staff deal with it because they've dealt with that stuff all throughout their career. It's not like it's unprecedented, but the eyeballs that are on them, the pressure that will be on them, the amount of people talking about what they should do. It's not just me. It's not just us, the recruiting sites, and Jerry Carino and the Asbury Park Press. It's ESPN. It's the Field of 68. It's all these other CBS, all these national sites that never even looked in Rutgers' direction will now be looking at them with a microscope. How will they handle that? I don't know, and I think that will be maybe the biggest intangible this season.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Looking at the schedule and you mentioned it. I don't think we're going to get to a point where they're going to lose one of these first 5 games. Wagner, St. Peter's, Monmouth, Merrimack, Kennesaw State, although Stonehill is burned into my memory. I get it. That was a different team, but still, I mean, it is still there. Scar matter in my brain about that. Then you go to Vegas, Notre Dame, Alabama, who TBD in the 3rd game. I think you'd be happy with 2-1. Obviously, in that situation, you might take 1 and 2. When does the schedule for you get interesting? Because for me, it's that early stretch in January where I'm going to be like, and I can read it off. At Indiana, 17th right now, Wisconsin, home versus Purdue and UCLA, both ranked teams. Then add a couple of teams you would think you would have to beat, at Nebraska, at Penn State, road wins. I mean, that is a tough start to 2025.
Yeah, no doubt. To me, the stretch is going to Kennesaw State, flying to Las Vegas, coming back, going to Ohio State, a place that is an absolute house of horrors that Rutgers has never officially won at. Then you come home and play Penn State, which is always pesky. And then you play 2 in-state rivals who, Seton Hall might not be very good this year, but a bad Rutgers team beat a decent Seton Hall team last year. These things happen in these rivalry games. I'm not going to scratch that in as a W. And then Princeton, who has 2 really good players who beat Rutgers last year and might not have as much talent individually, but they're a machine, man. They're going to win. They might win the Ivy League again. So that'll be a tough challenge. I think that stretch, it'll be a little spaced out. I think that stretch is going to be tough, and I can certainly see Rutgers dropping a game, maybe Seton Hall, maybe Princeton, maybe Penn State, where you wouldn't expect them to, and that might be the first piece of adversity they face this season.
Yeah, it's funny. Right around the holidays, right? You get the Princeton, Seton Hall, and then New Year's kind of starts the Big Ten season. It's probably when people will be paying attention the least, but it might be the most important stretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess I feel like they've got the talent to win those games. Penn State should be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, right? Seton Hall, I couldn't. Someone asked me, how's Seton Hall going to be this year? I have no idea. And I've looked at their roster. I'm like, okay, those are new players. Princeton, you'd hope you'd have the athletes, but to beat an Ivy League team, Columbia, same thing. But yeah, I certainly could see that being, there are landmines in there. For me, the step up in competition, though, at the start of the year, it's pretty noticeable. And that's when you can also go from a team that's ranked, that's in the conversation, to a team that is, you're a national team. That goes both ways. It isn't just, it isn't just, oh, you're going to lose a couple of games here. It is, you get through that stretch at 5-2 and people are like, whoa, look at Rutgers. All of a sudden you're like, why wasn't Rutgers a Sweet 16 team? Look, I mean, that, this thing can snowball in the other direction too. A lot of opportunities, a lot of fun looking at the schedule. It's a big challenge, but I think it's going to be great to watch.
If you beat Indiana on January 2nd, that could be your one. If you beat Alabama, that's your coming out moment, but that's on Thanksgiving week. Only so many people are paying attention then, right? If you beat Indiana January 2nd, that's kind of the first boom national, this team is for real moment. I am fascinated for that trip to Nebraska. I have this feeling in my gut, and I know a lot of Rutgers fans will be nodding their heads when they listen to this. I have this feeling in my gut that Gavin Griffiths will go nuclear, just go bananas. I can't shake it. And it might not happen. He might go 1 for 13. That's certainly possible. But I have this just feeling in my gut that he's going to go, 8 of 12 on threes and just, take out the goggles and wink at Steve Michael or something, just something nuts. I just have it.
Here's my feeling about that. It's too funny. You mentioned Indiana. I've got this feeling that whatever it is about beating Indiana is genetic, and Dylan Harper is going to show his. He's gonna show his set in Bloomington. It's just weird. As I'm predicting it, I'm like, wouldn't that be hilarious if what Ron Harper, what Junior did, he could pass it down to his little brother and it'd be the same. The people in that state would just be traumatized for years about the Harper family. But yeah, I don't know. We're just guessing at this point. This is an interesting point. I wonder what you think about this, guys. What style of team do you think is going to give Rutgers more trouble? Because you mentioned you thought you could see them going to Nebraska and that being a problem. That's a team that's going to shoot a lot of threes, going to run up and down the court. We mentioned that. I thought they're going to beat Penn State. That's a team that's going to beat the crap out of you. What style do you think is going to cause this team problems?
Yeah, the St. John's Center thing was a
Right.
major, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That was,
because-
teams with great big men, I think, are going to be inevitably challenging. But the way Rutgers is set up, I almost think like they have the versatility to play different styles. So there's not really a mismatch other than being dominated on the inside and on the glass, to me at least.
I think that's the one glaring thing, right? If you have a dominant center and you have 3 or 4 guys who can defend the perimeter, put a lot of ball pressure on Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, kind of keep a guy always on whatever shooters on the floor. I think that's clearly the way to neutralize Rutgers. I think, like you said, a team that can just bomb threes, because Rutgers does not have the guys to keep up with threes. Threes are worth more than twos. So the more threes you rack up, the harder it is for Rutgers to catch up. But otherwise, I think if it's like I do think a team like Rutgers, maybe like a former Steve Peichel team that grinds the game away, puts it down to 50 possessions, wins 37-24 or whatever. Like those are the teams that are going to give you trouble because you have less chances to score. And I'm not sure how efficient this team is, right? I know Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey can put up points and hit, and can they do it efficiently? That's my question. And I think a team that makes you do that will make it a little bit difficult. But on an equal playing field, equal styles, I think Rutgers obviously out-talents most teams they face in that scenario.
All right, let's do the true. You had a true or false to the script. We haven't done this in a while, but it's fun. Let's do a little true or false. We've got some topics predicting where this team's going to go. Let's see how you guys feel about it. Here you go. True or false? Rutgers finishes in the top half in the Big Ten. In case you've lost count, that would be in the top 9 teams in the Big Ten. True or false? Pat, you go first.
True.
Brian?
I'll go true too.
Yes, I'm confident in true. I'm not just saying it like true. I think they're going to finish in the top half. Rutgers finishes in the top 4 in the Big Ten. Pat, true or false?
That's that's like the bar for me. I think I'm going to say false because I was overly optimistic for football, so I'm reeling myself back in.
You were? Oh, I
don't remember that.
I don't remember that. Let's play the tape back. Brian, true or false?
I'll go false, but I'm not sure who is exactly good in the Big Ten, right? So I'm trying to think of what 4 teams would be ahead of Rutgers. I mean, UCLA is going to be good. Indiana will be good on paper. I don't know if Mike Woodson can take this talent to the promised land. I don't know if Purdue is going to be as good. They got the backcourt back. They got a decent guy coming in, Trey Kaufman-Wren as the center replacing Zach Edey. But Michigan State should be good.
Michigan State always.
But Rutgers, in theory, should be good too, right? So
I don't. So you're gonna go false or you go true?
I'll go false.
Okay, I'm gonna go false as well. I just too many questions about Rutgers for me to make a statement that high. All right, true or false? Rutgers is on the NCAA tournament bubble on Valentine's Day.
Ooh.
All right, interesting. If you're looking at the schedule, that's an interesting thing. Pat?
It would be the ultimate Valentine's Day gift for Rutgers fans to not be on the bubble, right? So for once, I think this is the team with such high expectations that it can't be on the bubble. With 2 weeks to go or whatever.
You're saying
so
false.
I'll say false.
As I said on the last episode, I think Steve Peichel could have the dream team of 1992, and they would still be on the bubble in February. I subscribe to Max Schreiner's theory of bubble ball. Give me a true.
Yeah, that's funny. I depends. I think that you could make the case that they would certainly not be in the field. I don't know if that means they're in the bubble at that point. And just I've looked at the schedule, and for me, Valentine's Day is the 14th. The games after 14th, you could really make some hay. At Oregon, at Washington. Okay, it's a tough trip, but then USC, then at Michigan, then at Purdue, and then home to Minnesota, probably one of the weakest teams in the Big Ten. So a little finishing 6 games, you could probably go 4-2 there. I don't know. We're just throwing crap against the wall here. I will say true-ish on that.
Oh,
Come on. True-ish. All right. And finally, this is not true or false, but what is your season prediction? You guys got one that you can put on this? We did it. We tried to break it down for a post for the website. It was hard. it was really hard because you just don't know. But it was an exercise in guesswork. Pat, what did you guess? What did you put it at?
Let's see. I'm still working on that as we speak. But
Don't
the
worry about it.
procrastinator, Lanny, we'll say, I think 20 wins should be the goal, right? Let's go 20. Let's go with 20 wins. Let's set it at that, and 7th in the Big Ten.
Okay. What did you have?
I bounced back and forth. I'm between 19 and 20. I think I said 19 in print, and I think I might go 20 in our post tomorrow, or it might be backwards. I don't know. I think they'll win 11 Big Ten games. I think they'll win 8 or 9 non-conference. I think they'll finish, like Pat said, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's hard to tell what other teams' records are going to be in the Big Ten. And then I think they better hope to God they get to the East Regional in the NCAA tournament so that Prudential Center is on the table. That's my guess.
I think I said, and I'm looking it up now, so I know what I said. I got him at 21 and 12. Do I? Yes, 21 and 12, 11 and 9 in the Big Ten. And this is where I was trying to guess, and it's impossible to pick the NCAA tournament result without knowing the matchup. But I just thought about how I pick teams in the NCAA tournament, and it usually is kind of dependent on experience. And I just think if I were looking at this team from completely just looking at the top players being freshmen, I might pick against them in an 8-9 game, which is about, I think they'll be in that range right now, right? I think there'll be a 7-10, 8-9. That's where I see it. It's a toss up. Give them a Creighton, give them some big, I don't know who's going to be. Just someone who's going to have a lot of experienced players. Yeah, I could see them losing in the first round. Would that be a successful season? I don't know. No, I don't know. It's a great question. People, certainly by Rutgers standards, it's a great season, but going into it, if that's it, people might be a little, right?
That's what got Kevin Willard run out of Seton Hall, right? Being in the 9 seed every year for 5 years was great, in my opinion.
Well, he took another job. He didn't get run out.
Sure. But to be fair, Seton Hall people were done. Yeah. So,
I guess it is a good question, Steve. What to you is a successful season for Rutgers basketball?
I guess I have to different levels of success. I think making the tournament and nearly every year is a successful season for Rutgers basketball. I think getting to the Sweet 16 is a great season for Rutgers basketball. I do wonder though, different tiers, like if you have a really good Big Ten, you can also, that can also be a great season. If you're like 5th in the Big Ten and you're easily in the field and you lose your first game. All right. I mean, I don't know. There's like different, it's not all dependent. Rutgers is not the kind of program like Duke where you better make the Final Four. Like you have to have a March run. You can still have a good season in other ways. Like for me, if you're like a really good Big Ten team, if you're winning all these games, if you're stacking up moments, like that was the great part about those Ron Harper teams. You didn't get to the second week of the tournament, but you have the Purdue win, you have winning streak at the rack, you have beating Maryland, all these comeback against Ohio State. You have all of these moments that made it something special. I think there's potential that I get it. That is a nebulous. That's not defined in a specific way, but it can be more than just what you do in March for Rutgers.
What do you bet?
Yeah, I love what Steve said there about enjoying the ride. Like that's what I remember from exactly those moments. Just like when you didn't think something could get better, it got better for Rutgers, and that was almost unfathomable for a program that's been so downtrodden for so long. So let's have some excitement. I imagine the place is going to be just special every night. I think that's a start, right? Like making this really special. And then this is such a momentum sport too, that little things start to stack up. And then, which is why I thought Rutgers would be outside the top 25 to begin the season and kind of play their way in. Mm-hmm. It was funny to me to see it the other way around. Regardless, I get it. In terms of March, I think they got to be a little bit higher than 8, 9. So we'll see. And then at the same time, I'm saying they're going to be 7th in the Big Ten. So that is exactly where they would be. So yeah, in
It's hard.
hindsight, it's almost impossible to predict this. But I think, and at the very bottom line, like the takeaway is this is going to be really fun, and
Right.
every single person that walks through the door is going to be like, this is something I've waited for a long time, and just to have that would be incredible.
I do have a follow-up. I have a follow-up question, but I do want to give my take. I think, sincerely, if this team does not make a Sweet 16, the season is a failure. I mean this sincerely. You will never, ever, ever have 2 top 5 NBA draft picks on your team again. Ever. You might never have one ever again at Rutgers. Okay. And I understand Rutgers has been a downtrodden program for a long time. And I understand there are scales to success. But at some point, we have to realize what is right in front of us. The talent level they have on this team on the top end puts them at a point where they should be striving for a Sweet 16 at the very least.
Oh,
Where the
sure.
Final
Yeah.
Four isn't a complete, afterthought. Like, I think a Final Four is unlikely, but I don't think we should rule it out immediately. Again, they have Dylan freaking Harper and Ace freaking Bailey, guys who you would pinch yourself if you had one of them 24 months ago. Now you have 2 of them, guys. This is the 9th year under Steve Peichel. We keep talking about Shiano's 5th year. This is the 9th year under Steve Peichel. Okay. If Rutgers does not make a Sweet 16, it is a failure not only of the roster, it is of the staff that put the roster together and of the fan base who could not put together the resources to give this team a center or more talent around them.
You're
I
not
think
gonna blame. You're not going to blame you're not going to blame.
I should not
the
blame the fan
paying
base.
customers.
Not the fan base. I should take that back. People are already riding.
Alabama's not writing. Yeah.
Let me pull back on that. I should not mean the fan base. The community around the school, the big money players, the people who in theory should be funding, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think
Pat Hobbs' fault again.
Listen, no jokes. It is Pat Hobbs' fault. It is. Anyway, I think this team should thrive for Sweet 16. You can't determine who your draws in the NCAA tournament. Stuff happens in this sport. I totally get it. But I think it would be a complete waste of a season and really an insult to the program if you don't put them at a point where they should aspire for the Sweet 16.
Well,
Now,
they are striving for it. I mean, that's clear. They are. It's what, Steve Peichel saying national championship. He's got the trophy case empty. I mean, I don't think, they're not the ones
Right.
setting the bar where we're setting it.
But he said that every year. He said that in 2018 when they stunk, right? Like, so, I mean, he's supposed to say that. He's the head coach of a Division I program. He's a high major program. He's supposed to say that. I think, if you put some truth serum in him, is he going to say that they have to make a Final Four this year? I don't think so. I really don't. So anyway, I think the Sweet 16 should be, to me, the minimal bar. Now, let me ask you this. I'm going to give you 2 scenarios, and I want you to tell me which one you would sign up for. Rutgers wins a Big Ten regular season title. They're the Big Ten champions. They lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament as a 4 or 5 seed. Or Rutgers finishes 10th in the Big Ten. They scrape in to the NCAA tournament as a first 4 team, and they make the Elite 8. What are you signing up for?
When you put it the Elite 8, that changes it a little bit. I thought you were going to say Sweet 16. If you said Final Four, that's easily the option.
Sure.
I think I'd probably go with the latter. Pat, what do you think?
I just imagine like this would be if they're on that magical NCAA tournament run that St. Peter's had or FDU, right? Like they're not a Cinderella. Let's put it out there. They're clearly not a Cinderella, but I think the excitement that comes from that is just trumps everything.
Yeah.
So that I would have to take the latter.
Right. Yeah. You?
Totally agree. I will say, because as fun as a Big Ten title would be, and more meaningful, I would say, because you actually win a title as opposed to becoming one of the best 8 teams in the country in a single elimination bracket, right? In theory, the Big Ten title is more important, but the impact an Elite 8 trip would make for this program next season and beyond would be so much more valuable than winning the Big Ten. I could not tell you. Well, I actually know it's Purdue. I was going to say I could not tell you who won the Big Ten last year, but Purdue was so dominant. It's hard to forget. But like,
about to say, even I could tell you that. Come on.
Right. But my point is like, it's more memorable when a team makes an Elite 8. When Kansas State made the Elite 8, I can't remember if they won the Big 12 or they finished 8th. I don't remember, and I don't care because they were in the Elite 8 2 years ago. That's the stuff that matters, I'd say.
All right, let's take some questions from our folks. We got some good ones, some on Twitter. Dave White, it's a basketball preview show. When we're bringing up the name Dave White, I'm going to go to the Cord Club. I'm going to have that third slice of pizza. can't wait. What if it's two? What if it's one small slice of pizza, Dave? Have you thought about that? See, this is really inside baseball. People don't know what I'm talking about. I just can't explain it. I won't even try to explain it. All right. Dave White wants to know, what is the most dangerous buy game on the schedule and what is going to be the most fun rack game on the schedule? I'm going to start. I'm going to say the most dangerous buy game, and I don't know where I came up with this, but for some reason, Monmouth, the third game they play, just a good kind of sneaky team that'll be well coached, and they'll come in and they'll that's what I'm putting at and I think the most fun rack game is going to be when UCLA comes here. It's a Monday night, 6:30. I don't love the time, but for me, again, you got to get UCLA. I mean, Big Ten, those jerseys, talent, the program. John Wooden will be here in spirit, at least. I don't know. That's my pick. What do you guys got?
Go ahead, Bry.
So by game, I think there are a couple of candidates. I'll go Merrimack because they throw out that junk zone, that kind of unique zone defense that they use, that Jordan Durkat kind of was spearheaded as the NEC Player of the Year last year. And that is going to confuse the freshmen who have never seen this level of defense or this type of defense. And this is their fourth game, right? Like, how is Dylan Harper going to handle this weird zone? I think he'll be fine, obviously, but I just
shoot a lot of threes and make them. Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh, that's another question, right? Yeah. So I think that's kind of, I think they'll beat Merrimack. I think they should beat Merrimack by double digits, but might be a bit of a challenging first half. Best rack game, I'm, maybe Michigan, 3:30 on a Saturday. Start of February, the kind of season is turning to that critical juncture. Everyone's going to be a little fired up to kind of hit the finish line strong. And I think Rutgers fans kind of don't like Michigan. I know that it's Dusty May now instead of Juwan Howard, but I think there's a little residual, feelings from that era. So, and Danny Wolf is going to go against Zack Martini. All the Ivy League fans, all 12 of them that live in New Jersey, will flock to the rack to see that monster matchup. So I think those are my two choices.
Yeah, I'm going to go. So not knowing anything about Kennesaw State.
You do know they're going to Kennesaw State, so that's got to be
that's
something.
The thing, right? I'm looking at a trap game scenario in these first five, right? What's after Kennesaw State? Immediately you're thinking about going to Las Vegas and playing these big dogs. So it's a road game. It's kind of an interesting matchup. I feel like Kennesaw State's one of those programs no one knows anything really about, including myself. And that's not good.
You're wearing Kennesaw State colors, dude.
There you go. I knew there was a reason. So I would say that one I would circle that one. And the only other option I considered, but they're probably one of the worst programs in the country, I do know that, is Columbia. Like, they're just based on another trap game scenario, because your next game's at Indiana and you're coming off Princeton. So, but they were so bad last year. I can't even put that one in the conversation. In terms of fun rack games, you guys kind of nailed both of them, but I'll throw out versus Purdue.
Always fun.
That's right in the middle of the season. They're expected to be the Big Ten champ, right? Coming off national finals appearance. So I think there'll be a lot of juice for that one.
Right.
And I was going to say, right, only a diehard Rutgers basketball fan like Dave White would start his question by, which game are we actually going to lose?
It's true. Good point. All right. This question comes up every week. Rocco wants to know, everyone's going to ask this, any chance that our 5-star recruits will consider staying at Rutgers past this year? And do you think having these recruits will help Pike recruit more 5-stars in the future? They're not staying. They ain't staying. They're gone. Let's just move on. If you get 1 year, starting on Wednesday, start the clock, hit a plunger, enjoy it while you got it. But the second part of the question, Brian, maybe?
If Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey stay for another year, that is horrible news. You know what that means? Yeah. It means they stink. Or they got devastatingly injured. Either way, that's not what you want, right?
Nope.
So you better hope they're not back for a second year. Second part of the question, more than on-court success, they could go to a Final Four. All that will be really exciting. The first question any 5-star kid is going to ask you when they go to a recruiting meeting with you is not going to be, when's the last time you went to the Final Four or won a national championship? What kind of style do you play? The first question is going to be, how much are you going to pay me? And Steve Pike will have to hold out his hand, count the 5 nickels in his hand, and say, sorry, kid, not as much as Kansas or Kentucky or Duke or Alabama or Houston or any of the other big blue bloods. So I guess the answer is, will it help a little bit? You know what will help more? If the corporations around New Brunswick open up their purse strings and give a little bit more money.
No, Johnson's fault. Now we've moved from Dave White's fault to Johnson & Johnson's fault. I love it.
Let's not get rid of the Heldrich while we're out of here now too. I mean, we're doing great here. We're
doing
thriving.
the best they can. They need the money's going to the right place. Heldrich Hotel.
In fairness, the revenue sharing will help this. I know we've talked about this in the last pod. Maybe the corporations will not be at fault next year. But to answer the question, all that matters is money. Okay, let's be real.
But it didn't in this situation. So why? So how? Like how is this just such an anomaly?
This is a complete anomaly. And listen, these guys aren't here for free. All right, like I'm not letting anybody convince me that these guys are here because of love and loyalty and good feelings. And listen, I think they're getting some money.
I mean, they're getting money they're getting money they would have gotten anywhere. Dylan was going to sign a Red Bull contract any place he played, right? Like that was the big news.
If he went to Duke, he would have gotten Red Bull and Nike and Fanatics and Duke money. Okay.
Right.
Let's I watched my last Disney movie about 12 years ago. Okay. I am not buying it. And listen, this is kind of mostly speculation, right? I don't know what they're getting paid. I don't know what it is, but I do not believe it's $0. But I lost my train of thought here. I was talking about revenue sharing.
You're talking about Toy Story or something.
Toy Story,
Little Mermaid. I could see Brian.
We're talking
came out. Ariel. Anyway.
We're talking about anomalies, right? Like it's the same way that you can't expect a bunch of teams to do what Indiana did this year and go 9-0 and probably make the playoff in their first year under Signetti. You can't expect programs like Rutgers to land 2 top 5 kids out of nowhere every year. This is a complete anomaly, no doubt about it. Which is why I keep saying Rutgers has to take advantage of it because it's never going to happen again. Never.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. You bring up, so that was a good transition to another question. How much money? So that the revenue sharing part, we've learned some information about it. Someone wants to know how much money percent will Rutgers direct towards football, basketball, and others. I think Ross Dellinger, Yahoo reported 20.5 million, which is a little bit less. I think the vast majority of that's going toward the 2 revenue sports. If Rutgers is smart, I should make sure I get that. The vast majority of that's going to those 2 sports.
And you would argue that the program that brings in the most revenue would ultimately get the most revenue. But this is the basketball preview, so let's.
No, we're not. We're going to say it should go to football.
Oh, we're going to say
absolutely.
It. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Dave, this is the part where Dave White is pulling his hair out of his head. But I would say 97 to 99% should go to football and basketball. Right, in an ideal world, Olympic sports. I mean, Ohio State is cutting Olympic sports. A lot of programs are going to start cutting Olympic sports because all they do is lose money. And frankly, I know we talk about them at the end of every podcast. Not that many people care about them. That's the reality, right? Yeah. So they're going to suffer the brunt of the consequences of all this. I would say football, minimum 75%, minimum. I'd say probably more reasonably 80, 85. Basketball gets something like 10 to 12.
No, I think 75 is the right number. Yeah. Right.
You get basketball 20%, 12%, or 20%.
You got to get you're going to give something to. You're not going to give 0% to the other sports. You're going to give something of this money, right?
Right. 15%. Okay. So you give 80% to football, 15 to 16% to basketball,
and you're going to pass the coins. You're going to give nothing to, like literally nothing to. You think that's going to fly? Can you imagine that? You could.
I mean, everyone else is. You think Alabama is going to give women's soccer?
I do. That's the funny part about this. I think Ohio State is too because they've got money from other sources. So I think that's what's going to happen. There's going to be pressure. You don't think I mean, unless I'm completely misreading this, but Ohio State already has a $20 million payroll. I get it. There's some hopeful pie in the sky, like, well, the NIL is going to be real NIL. I don't think they're going to put the toothpaste back in the tube for that. So I think it's going to be easier for Oregon to give money to the track team than Rutgers.
That's a bad example because Nike's been funding Oregon track for
literally
forever.
Already has the money.
The Oregon field hockey, yeah. But you're right. Your point is absolutely right. There's real worry. I follow wrestling very closely. The wrestling community is throwing up every red flag, every red light possible, saying like, guys, if we don't pay attention, this is the end of college wrestling. That's how this is going. And it's not just wrestling, like gymnastics, whatever Olympic sport you want to say. Like there's legitimate fear because it's also the scholarship issue and now you have to mix and match Title IX requirements and juggle the scholarship limits and all this. And it is very concerning if you're a big fan of an Olympic sport that this revenue sharing could be a huge downfall of your program.
Right. No, it'll be fascinating to see how it's done. Yeah, that's good. And I do think if they do get to a point where there is some cost certainty in college sports, it will help Rutgers. The question is how they're going to get there. Is really a big question. All right, some more.
They'll have the money for sure. Just off the Big Ten media rights deal, right? Like it's a matter of distributing it and using it correctly. Because your point, all the other programs that have all this extra money will still be able to use that money on real NIL. I don't trust the NCAA or anybody else to enforce what is real or not.
Another question: what is the high-level update on the AD search? I'll do my Elmo. They certainly they have a search firm finally for the president. That news came out last week, so they want to have him in place by July 1st, which is timely because that's when Jonathan Holloway will be out of the position. No news yet on a search firm. I know we've heard that they've talked to search firms, but yeah, I don't. It's sort of a fascinating deal. I don't know. They certainly do not seem to be in any hurry. I think that favors Ryan Passari, who's doing the job now as an interim AD. I don't know. If that means he's the guy. It's just there's still a lot of questions about who's going to make that hire. Greg Shannon will be involved in it. He's coaching the team right now. Steve Peichel loves Ryan Passari, but Brian, they can't not have a search, right? We all agree on that point, at least.
This is Rutgers. They can do anything. Your imagination believes. They should.
They should. I think they've got to see what candidate they have to.
Yes,
must have to.
I think
that has to have already happened at this point too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's be realistic too. I mean, there's no way we could be 2 months into this and say there hasn't been any sort of right. So that would be crazy.
Right.
The fact they're talking to search firms means they must have some plan of hiring one. Probably in the near future, right? But I think Ryan Passari, like to your point, the longer this drags on, the more his candidacy has some power, some momentum behind it. But I certainly think it can't be a one-horse race, and I don't think it will be.
Right. Do you think, and this is interesting, because we have not talked about the gymnastic thing in a while. I wonder if they want to get that solved to some degree. We still don't have a timeline on when that's going to get done, or do we? Any insights?
I don't know when it will be done. I don't expect it to be done anytime soon. Certainly not in the next couple of weeks, perhaps by the end of the month. But I don't think there's any sense of when exactly it'll be done. Though I do think the original hope was that it would be done in early November. That does not seem to be the case. I would expect at best late November, early December. But you never know where these investigations go. So we'll see.
Right. All right. We'll take some more questions for our Picks Pod later in the week. But that was good. Good questions, everyone. Good basketball preview. Anything else? Football. Hey, football plays a game this week. I don't know if you guys spent your Saturday watching college football, but possibly is Minnesota the best team they've played? It's not that crazy. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's not true, but they won another game. All of a sudden now, like, this is a pretty good Minnesota bowl eligible coming to Piscataway, right? I mean, what did you see? If you watched any of that game, what did you see?
Turnover margin.
Again? Yeah.
Yeah. 6th nationally. They're plus 12 in turnover margin. It's an insane stat, right? They're just winning games because they're taking the ball away. But conversely, the one thing Rutgers has done really well offensively as that unit's kind of come alive is not give the ball away. Right. Rutgers only has 8 giveaways or 6 giveaways in 8 games, or 8 giveaways in 6 and 8. Right. 6 giveaways in 8 games, which is really good.
Right. The one thing they're not doing wrong this current time. Right. Yeah.
Minnesota is good in that they beat teams they should. They beat USC at home. They beat UCLA. They beat Illinois, right? So, they're winning. They haven't beat anybody good. They've lost to Michigan. They lost to your alma mater, Steve, who is stinking it up in the ACC this year. So they're
People
not
told me
great.
that. Yeah.
Huh?
People
I
told
wasn't
me
sure
that.
if you, I wasn't sure if you got the news. Yeah, they are PU. I mean, they stink. Mac Brown.
There's a school that needs to spend its $20.5 million on another sport.
Oh, they have money, as you know, as
They
you well
do
know.
have money. Yes.
So Minnesota is good. Minnesota does what Rutgers has struggled to do this year, which is win the matchup games. This is another matchup game. I certainly don't think Minnesota is much more talented than Rutgers, but Minnesota has proven it can win these types of games. So we'll see. I think it's a chance, and we'll discuss this more on the Pick Pod, but I think this is the ultimate chance for Rutgers to kind of turn things around a little bit, gain a little bit momentum, because I think if you lose this game, it becomes a 5-game losing streak. You're in the last 3 games. You need 2 wins to make a bowl game. Is the Detroit Bowl worth fighting for? If you ask me, no. If you ask them, who knows? We'll see. But I think this could be the last intriguing game of the season if things don't go the right way.
Yeah. I think it's certainly from a program standpoint, it is very worth fighting for. I don't know if it's the players see it that way, but to be able to say back-to-back bowls is better than saying anything else. I certainly think there's, for Greg Schiano, for what they're trying to build, these last 4 games are huge. Again, I don't know if some players see it the same way. I think most of them will. I mean, you've come this far. There's only a couple of guys who, if they're legitimately hurt and they've kind of moved on mental, I don't know that there's a lot of guys I'd put in that category. For the most part, I think they would agree with this, that, and besides, you win all 4, you're 8-4. So,
well, let's start one at a time. And Minnesota is big because there's so many storylines. There's Greg Schiano versus PJ Fleck. There's Kirk Shiraka and Joe Harris-Simiak against their old team. Corey Heatherman's coming to town after his unit kind of fell apart without him. Ethan Kaliakmanis is facing his old team. Dino Kaliakmanis as well. Flip Dixon is facing his old team. It feels like this is like both sides have flipped, and they're playing each other, essentially. They're playing a mirror of each other. I think that's kind of have to have a little bit of juice for both sides.
Right. Row the boat. Chop
Sky
the boat.
Ma.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come back. A lot of other action. It was kind of a fascinating weekend in Big Ten. James Franklin choked again. Another team on the schedule did not look good. Illinois did not look good. If you're looking at the rest of Rutgers' schedule, looks soft.
One question for you, columnist veteran.
Ooh.
You say James Franklin choked, and I agree. They ran the ball 3 times and couldn't get a yard. Is that on James Franklin or the players?
It's on James Franklin.
Yeah, it's what he makes. I'm not talking about any sequence of plays. I'm talking about
those were the right play calls. Those were the right play calls.
They have the most
win that game.
They have the most talented, creative offensive coordinator in the country. I read 7 profiles about him just last week, how he's this offensive genius. And his genius idea is give the ball up the gut against one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten. Get out of here, pal.
Yes, also, that's what you do on first and goal at the 3.
They choked because they were up 10-0 against an Ohio State team completely wobbling. They're ready to eat Ryan Day alive in Columbus. The place had 111,000 people. It was jumping. I texted you, Pat. Ryan Day was going to be an offensive analyst for the New York Giants next year. It's so bad. And you said, to your credit, James Franklin will find a way to lose this game. And he did. And listen,
I know.
James Franklin is in a point where he has the program humming. This is a top 5 team. They're beating everybody they should. They just can't beat Ohio State, right? Yeah. And Penn State's kind of purgatory.
Penn State, right? Get in the playoff and figure it out, but we know how that's probably going to go.
Right.
I don't know. I thought they should have done better. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. How are you a top 10 team and you don't have an offensive touchdown? How? With this genius, the Bill Belichick of offenses, apparently, like this genius offensive coordinator. It's they can't recruit. Yeah. They can't recruit receivers.
I'm down on James Franklin for a million reasons. Obviously, the disgraceful press conference with the way he walked off the podium after the players charged with rape. I mean, just stuff. He's just not. I wonder when they'll get tired of him.
Sure.
Forget Ryan Day. I mean, grief. We lose. Okay. You lost to Michigan a few years in a row. They're going to make the playoff. And when you pick the playoff, you're going to look at the talent on a team and say, okay, maybe. I mean, it's possible. But James Franklin for me, good grief. Go on.
Sorry.
More.
I didn't mean to cut off your James Franklin. I love dumping on James Franklin as much as anybody. I didn't mean to cut you off. More importantly, in the Big Ten, guys, UCLA might not actually stink. How about that?
Yes. Yes.
There's someone who sent me a very angry email about when I said UCL freaking A in a column, and they're like, "You've got no place to say this." I'm like, God, is no one rippable anymore? But I have to admit that guy who sent the email might have a point. I still think they were like 3-5 now, 4-5, 3-5,
something like that.
USC lost again.
Having the Ethan Garber's effect. Yeah, that one was maybe more crazy. Like the Garber's turnaround at UCLA is kind of like unbelievable.
The confidence that kid got from facing the Rutgers pass rush.
It takes me back to what Shiano said in the first press conference before the season about how things change like that.
Yeah,
and he does have some credence to that.
Any confidence they can change for the Scarlet Knights coming off a bye week. Who's healthy? Is that possible? It's possible.
I don't think so. I mean, anything's possible, to quote Kevin Garnett, but I don't see it. We could talk about that on Thursday. I think we should record a pod on Thursday after the men's basketball season opener on Wednesday.
Good idea. Fair? Solid.
Great idea.
Right. Good idea.
Really quick, run through the Olympic sports because there was some good action this weekend. Men's soccer, their season ended on Sunday no matter what because they didn't make the Big Ten tournament.
No.
You have to be the top 7 or 8 team. They didn't make it. They were in last place, but they won at Michigan State in a crazy game. They're winning 1-0. There's 45 seconds left. A Rutgers defender dives and blocks a shot with his arm, giving Michigan State a penalty, and Michigan State misses the frame. They don't even put it on goal. They put it to the side and miss it. Rutgers survives and wins 1-0. Very exciting stuff. Fun to end the season on a winning note, though you have to start to wonder if that program is going in the wrong direction after 2 kind of rough seasons after winning the Big Ten tournament. Women's soccer upsets Michigan State in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. They will play in the semifinals, barring an upset from Ohio State today at noon. They will play number 1 seed USC. Ooh. Big challenge. They did not play USC during the regular season, but the Trojans are wagging. Trojanettes.
Are they in the NCAA's win or lose?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. I don't know for a fact.
Right.
But I believe so.
Before we move on, you got to go to the Rutgers Rant Twitter feed if you guys don't follow Rutgers, if you're not on Twitter. There's a photo of Olivia Bodmer, the goaltender for Rutgers, making a save where she is completely horizontal to the ground. It is a great shot. I mean, good grief, man. That's some athleticism. Anyway.
Impressive. And good photography too.
Yeah.
Good photography. Yeah, good photography too.
Field hockey to end things up. They play number 5 Ohio State in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. Rutgers is number 4. I'm not quite sure they are in position to make the NCAA tournament if they don't win the whole Big Ten tournament because field hockey has very little teams and a very small field in the NCAAs. So again, I don't know if they have to win. I would say they probably should win to give themselves a chance. And we'll see.
All right. Good show, fellas. We'll be back later in the week. Well, first, we'll see you all in the rack on Wednesday. Cannot wait. Assuming the world does not end tomorrow, we will all be there. Him Piscataway, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Swagner. First game of the season. It's going to be thrilling. Cannot wait to see it. And then we'll be back later. We can talk about that and to preview Minnesota. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.